books. What I'm going to be discussing today is the new legislation that came in on the 1st of July 2017. There's still quite a bit of confusion regarding this particular piece of legislation. A lot of people don't really know how it's going to affect them when it comes to their 2017 and 2018 tax, because frankly, they don't quite understand it, and maybe some people are a bit complacent. As a property investor myself, I'm very interested in what this new legislation is and how it's going to affect my business of running my rental properties. So what I'm going to do is let's first establish exactly what this legislation is and what the wording has been used. So if you would like to, and you can follow along with me while I'm doing this video, is that you can pop over to the ato.gov.au website and you can type in the phrase rental properties / travel expenses, or you can Google it, rental properties / travel expenses. Now I'm going to avert my eyesight from the camera now and read out what the legislation is on the ATO website. So from the 1st of July 2017, travel expenses relating to residential investment property are not deductible. So did you get that? You can no longer claim travel. A residential premise or property is land or building that is one, occupied as a residence for residential accommodation, and the other one is intended to be occupied and is capable of being occupied as a residence for residential accommodation. Under the new legislation, you are no longer able to claim any deductions for the cost of travel you incur relating to residential rental property unless, and this is really important that you listen to this, you are carrying on the business of property investing or are excluded. Okay, as with prior years, the travel expenditure cannot be included in the cost base for calculating your capital gain or your capital loss when you sell the property. So what does this mean? Well, I did some research to see if I could find some examples, because being as I'm not a tax agent, and let me just establish this very clearly now, I'm a BAS agent and I'm a property investor myself in residential and commercial property. I am unable to give you any tax advice, okay? And free advice is normally simply just that, free advice. It has no value or substance. It's a bit like chewing a marshmallow. So what I'm going to give to you though is to give you some food for thought, something to consider when it comes tax time. Now, I'm going to recommend very, very strongly that you do not self-assess when it comes to residential accommodation or properties if you want to claim travel and if you believe it's for business purposes. Go and see a tax agent. It's well worth the money that you pay. You can ring around and get different tax agents to talk to you and to give you quotes. If you want a recommendation of some excellent tax agents, I'm happy to give you a list of names of people who are reputable and reasonable in their pricing. However, with me saying that, I just want to really, really enforce, don't go to Airtask and get some business person to give you tax advice about residential property, or go to the bar and ask your buddy at the pub what he does with his residential property. This is pretty serious stuff. If you get audited, you are going to be required to substantiate all those expenditures, and I can tell you that residential property is on the hit list for the 2017-18 financial year. So what's my underlining recommendation? My advice is go and see a tax agent, please. Now, for information purposes, because I am a property investor myself, I've done some research. Now, I'm a member of the Property Owners Association of Queensland, and I'll show you this little brochure here. Now, in there on page 6, they give the example of where your travel accommodation is not going to be included in as a deduction. So let me again read out this example to you. So it's talking about Michael. Michael lives in Melbourne. Now he wants to go to his rental property in August of 2017. He flew up to Brisbane to visit his rental property. Because Michael visited his rental property under the new legislation that took effect the 1st of July 2017, he cannot claim any expenses for his travel. And that's where you need to pop over to the ato.gov.au rental property / travel expenses to clarify that. So in that instance, if you have 1 or 2 properties, you're not going to get any claims. Now, I personally believe that this is pretty harsh going. Why? Because if you have, say, a tenant that dies and you're in Brisbane and they're in Melbourne and you have to fly down to assist with the investigation, even though it's very serious, you're not going to be able to claim any of your time, the accommodation, the taxi fare, or the flight down there. You'll have to appeal to the tax commissioner for an exemption, which you may or may not get depending on their discretion. So just keep this in mind. It's a pretty serious change in the legislation with claiming residential properties. Another one, which is my own example, is if you've got 1 or 2 rental properties and you live in Brisbane and you're driving down to Logan to collect the rent in cash. You cannot claim your time or the travel expenditures driving from Brisbane down to Logan to collect the cash and go back home or to pop it in the bank. All that is gone. You cannot claim from the 1st of July 2017. So I thought, let's do a little bit more of the scratching the surface here. And being as I am a member of the Tax Institute, I saw that there's an article in here that is called, and I'll just flick it over and I'll share that with you. They talked about, and this is the Taxation in Australia, volume 82 in brackets number 8. And on page 413, there's a great article called Carrying on Business, A New Frontier. So more than ever now, if you remember when I went back to the ATO website, it explained that unless you are carrying on a business of property investment. So what constitutes a business? Well, it explains on 413 of the Tax Institute article, Carrying on a Business, A New Frontier. It says, the exemplary memorandum to the Treasury Laws Amendment, in brackets, the Housing Tax Integrity Bill of 2017 states, and I'm going to read this, so I'll be averting my eyesight from the camera. 1.36, whether a business is carrying depends the facts of the particular case. For example, some indicators that the courts consider relevant or whether the activity is a significant commercial purpose or character. Now, listen to the significant. Whether there is a repetition and regularity of activity, and whether the activity is better characterized as a hobby or recreational pastime. So listen to these main points. It needs to be a significant commercial purpose. It needs to have repetition and regularity that constitutes the characteristics of carrying on a business. Now, in here, if you turn over the page, it gives a really good case called Case G10. Now, it's quite a long article, so I won't go into all the particulars, but it said in 1959, the taxpayer built a 2-story block having 6 units for short-term lettings as holiday flats. Later, he put up another building to give more letting unit and other facilities. Him and his wife, they occupied one of these 2 buildings, 1 unit out of all the units, and they actually conducted a business-like characteristics of showing inspections. So 3 to 4 inspections would take about half an hour each, and maybe one of those would actually become a letting situation. The other thing to keep in mind is that he made an excess of 150 lettings a year. So that's quite excessive. And he was able to show this in his diary and his calendar, so he was able to substantiate this behaviour. And in that as well, they mowed the lawns, they repairs of the building, they cleaned the rooms, they purchased furnishings, so it has all the characteristics of a business-like situation. It's not just a residential property that they're renting out. It has business-like behaviour and characteristics. On this basis, the board said, here are the elements of repetition and continuality of acts and transactions are present purposes sufficient evidence of the existence of a business. So they were able to show that it was a continuous thing. They had records going back for many years. They were able to constitute that there was a repetition of behaviour and that these were sufficient evidence of the existence of a business. They said that they actively engage on a day-to-day of multi-areas activities directed at the profitable operation of the income-producing holiday units. So these are the things that we need to keep in mind. So you need to go and see a tax agent to get his professional input as to whether what your behaviour constitutes as a standard residential purpose where you cannot claim your travelling fees and charges, or whether it's a business purpose where you can. So that's my little tip for this particular video today about rental properties and travel expenses. Can you claim or can't you claim? Are you doing behaviour and characteristics of carrying on a business, or are you not? If you want to find anything else or see other information, I'll be having more videos coming up and discussing things. If you want to know where I got this information, I'll be including this in the notes that I'll have with the YouTube and also with my iTunes account when it's up and going. I'll have all the notes and also the resources that I used. Let me be very clear and very frank. I'm a BAS agent. While I may be a rental property owner and I might do behaviour that constitutes the business, I myself seek the advice of a tax agent and I do not self-assess. I think too many people are self-assessing and taking assumptions as being fact. While it's fine to use the ATO resources on their website, it's there as a guide. I would always specify and advise you to take the high road instead of the low road, and that is make sure you see a tax agent. If you want some recommendations of some fantastic tax agents, I'm more than happy to send you a list and you can interview them and see what they're like and whether they fit what you want in a tax agent. If you want to find out more about me and my agency of My Office Books, you can pop over to my website, which is myofficebooks.com or myofficebooks.info. You can find me on social media. I am absolutely everywhere. I'm on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just type in My Office Books. Remember at the end, it's BOOKS, My Office Books, and you'll find me. If you'd like to ask me a question, I'm always up and open to suggestions or questions or topics. So just pop over to any of my social media or my Facebook, like me and send me a private message. I'll be more than happy to be able to answer any questions you have if I have the ability to do so. In conclusion, at the end of the day, tax law is constantly changing. Do not pop over and go to the dark side, where you're going to use Airtasker for people that are unqualified or property investors or engineers who deem themselves to be your agent. Only BAS or tax agents can give you any sort of information regarding GST. A tax agent, when it comes to complex tax issues such as, can I claim my travelling costs because I'm carrying on the business of rental properties? You need to see a tax agent. I know I'm sounding a bit like a broken record here, but I think this is really, really important that you understand these points. So if you want to find me, Google My Office Books and I'll be more than happy to give you a hand. Thank you for watching this program and I hope you find the information interesting and useful. See you later. Bye-bye.